ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Western Swing Guitar Styles video. I'm Joe Carr, and for the next few minutes here today, I hope to show you some of the ways that you can begin to learn to run the chords, as they say. And if you've heard this style of playing before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We will be discussing a number of styles here. All of these styles could be related to jazz, if you're interested in beginning jazz. Also, more often, I think we would think of these chord changes as fitting in swing music, either Western swing music or just old-time swing of the 30s and 40s of the big bands, Benny Goodman and those kind of groups. And then here at the beginning of the tape, we're going to be talking about Texas-style backup. Now, a lot of you have heard the fiddle tune backup that guitar players do in the state of Texas, and it is a style that is, I think, evolved from the playing of Eldon Shamblin, who recorded back in the 1930s and 40s with the great Bob Wills Band. And when they heard all those bass lines running and the chords going along with them, they wanted to imitate that the best they could, and the result was the Texas guitar backup style for fiddle tunes, and we'll be discussing that first because it's a good way to get started, especially if you know some basic open chords on the guitar. I hope that you are familiar with the guitar and know that. We'll be concentrating in this video on the left hand more than the right hand, although I will show you the basic strum that I'm doing. Right now, let's get tuned up before we get into this video. We're going to start out with the little skinny high E string. Third, the G, the fourth, the D, the fifth, the A, finally the low E. Okay, spend a few minutes getting tuned up, and we'll be right back with the first tune. Okay, that is a generic fiddle tune. We'll call it Tom and Jerry, which it is. What was I doing there? Let's look at this for a minute. A standard way that people would play a fiddle tune like this would be just with two chords. You would have just a two chord, so and that would be the traditional way that this has been played, especially in the East. As the tunes traveled to the West, the Texas-style players invented a bass line to go along with this song that goes. Okay, from that point, they wanted to add chords that would go along with this, and that's what we have in our chord diagram. So let's go to our chord diagram so you can see. We have our first four chords. Now the first chord is a standard A, which could be played any way that you play A. I'll probably bar it with my first finger and play the bass note and strum, so the first chord would be like this, bass note and then a strum. And I'll probably leave out the first string. I haven't X'd it on the diagram, but I've left it without a circle also. A circle would mean to play it. and X would mean not to play it, but I've sort of left it there for you to decide. If you want to play it, it would be like this. Okay, your next bar, an A/C sharp means an A chord with a C sharp bass, and the way I play that is bar with my first finger, bring my third finger up to the 4th fret of the 5th string, and hit the C sharp note, and then strum the A chord. Then the next box will be a D chord, standard D, and play the 4th string. You'll notice that the 5th and 6th strings are X'd off, so don't play them. Play the D string, the D note, then strum the D chord. Then put your little finger in there on the 4th string, and that will give you the F sharp note. Now let's try those 4 one more time. It'll sound like this in rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's go to the next figure of 4, and we'll see that it begins the same way. Again, at the A chord, hit your A bass note, C sharp bass note. Now our first 2 changes will go to a B7 chord. You see that I'm playing the 5th string, and then strumming through, and then an E chord playing the low E bass note. Okay, let's try that section one more time. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now the third section you'll recognize. This is one of the nice things. It looks just like almost the first section. We have A with a bass note, strum, C sharp, bass note, A chord still, then D. And now since we're heading into our last 4, this chord moves us there, a D sharp diminished. If you're not familiar with this form, you need to memorize it because we'll be using it a number of times. I use my 1st and 2nd finger in those 1st fret positions, and my 3rd and 4th in the 2nd fret. Hit the note that is on the 4th string, that's your D sharp. Okay, that section one more time. A, C sharp bass, D, D sharp, and now we're ready for our last section, our last 4 chords, which move us to an E chord. And we would hold the same hand position for these first 3 diagrams, but we'll hit a different string. First we hit the 4th string and strum, and then E with a B bass gives you hitting the 5th string, and then the low 6th string E, and then back to A. Let me do that diagram one more time. We have an E chord we'll put here, and we'll hit the 4th string and strum, 5th string and strum, 6th string and strum, and A. All right, work through that material and we'll be back with a slightly more advanced version. Okay, there is the second version of this great fiddle tune, whatever it happens to be, and as I mentioned earlier, it's Tom and Jerry. Here we see a few variations. We're starting to move up the neck a little bit, and so let's go through this one. And if we look at the first 4 boxes of chords that we have there, you see that we start just as we did before. We're in A, so we hit our A bass note, and then strum. Again, I'm barring with my 1st finger over the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd finger strings. Okay, our next chord is an A9. Now, it's interesting that if you've learned your diminished chord already, this one has the same shape, except it's on a different set of strings. So I'm using my 1st and 2nd finger at the 4th frets, and my 3rd and 4th finger at the 5th fret, and I'm strumming through only through those 4 strings. You'll notice there are X's on the A9 chord on the 1st and 6th string. Okay, so I hit the lowest note as my bass note. That's the C sharp still, so we've got the same sound but a slightly different chord tonality there, which I like. Then to the D chord, and now we're putting the D sharp diminished at the very beginning of the progression as the 4th chord. So let me play through those 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, strum, 2, strum, 3, strum, 4, strum. Okay, now let's move on to the next 4, and we'll look at these next 4 chords and see that we start out this time with our C sharp bass in the A, and we're going to have a bass line that goes like this. And we do it this way. Start out with the A chord with the C sharp in the bass, and it goes like this. Okay, this next form is one that you'll want to learn. It's a C diminished, another form, and this form of diminished is on the inside strings, the inside 5 strings, and 4 strings, and this is the only strings we're going to play. We're not going to play the 6th or the 5th. That's a nice move. Let's listen to that. A with a C sharp bass, and then the C diminished again. Okay, the next chord is a B minor, which I hope you're familiar with. Now, rather than do the full bar B minor, I only go as far as the 5th string and use my fingertip as if it were not a bar chord. You'll notice I've got the 1st string out, so actually it's not a bar chord at all. And I just use the inside 4 strings and then the E chord. Let me play those 4 one more time for you. 3, 4. 1, strum, 2, strum, 3, strum, 4, strum. Okay, moving on to the 3rd set of 4 chords. We'll see, luckily enough, we have the same set that we had to begin with, so that gives us a little shortcut in this song. So we'll play A, strum, C sharp bass with the A chord, strum, then a D chord, and then the D sharp diminished chord. Notice I can't help but sing the note that I'm about to play. And then moving on to the final 3 chords in this case. You can short it like this. I'll show you how it's written, and then I'll show you how I played it a couple times just a minute ago in the demonstration. We had E, and this last chord is one that I see the bluegrass people playing a lot, and also the Texas fiddle contest type guitar players play it. You use your 1st finger to bar the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd fret, and your little finger stretches up and catches the A note on the 1st string at the 5th fret, and it sounds like this. It's kind of a stretch, but you'll get used to it. Now, actually, I could have put one more beat of E in here, and I believe I played it that way, so I actually played it similar to the version 1 where we had E 4th string, E 5th string, E 6th string, and then A. Very good. Work with that, and we'll be back with yet another version. Go with version 3, and you see we are up the neck now, and we're starting out with the A bar chord. Although I'm going to show you a couple of things about this. You'll notice that I right now am playing the standard A bar chord that you see there at the 5th fret with my 1st finger barring the 1st, 2nd, and 6th string, and then my 2nd finger coming in on the 3rd string at the 6th fret. my little finger at the 7th fret of the 4th string, and my third finger or ring finger at the 7th fret of the 5th string. Now that is the standard bar chord, but I will, if you watched earlier, and I'm sure you were watching, then you saw that I actually do this a lot of times. And so let me spell this chord out for you. What I've done, and in a way I even hate to teach this, although I see a lot of Texas and Western swing type players using this, but it's certainly not in any books anywhere. There's no classical training that would tell you to do this. But I'm using my thumb to grab this A note. And then my first finger now has a little bar on it, just a 2-string bar, just the 1st and 2nd string. Then my second finger can come in. And then actually what I do more often than not is mute the 5th string out. And so instead of having all 6 strings, which I could have, I only have 5. That string is muted out. As we move along here, you'll see more and more strings like that. So that's the way I probably do it more often than not. I have seen Jesse Taylor, who's a great blues player in Lubbock, has a giant, actually not just one giant finger, all his fingers are giant, and he's able to put his finger down over both the 4th and 5th string in this form and get a 6-string chord. I will usually mute this, so you can play with that and use it, or forget it and use the full bar if you'd like to be a little more proper about it. But with that being said, let's move on then to the diagram so we can begin to see our first 4 sections. We're starting at the 5th fret with an A chord. If you'll notice, our chord progression is similar to what we have used in the previous versions, but we're using different chord forms, and this gives us a little more closed sound. Now, I will say that in the Texas style, they would tend to, in the contest fiddling back up, they would tend to use the open chords back up near the nut. These closed forms are now getting us a little more into the swing style. I've played this way at fiddle contests, and I've been criticized. People say, well, you're playing too much of that jazz there. That's getting jazzy. So be aware that if you go to that musical context, you want to listen to the players and see what they do first. So these are the same chords, but in a different form. So our first one, we're going to play the 5th string, the 5th fret of the 6th string, low A note, and strum through. Okay. Then we will go to our A9th, which we've learned before, which makes us slip back to the 4th fret. And strum through again only to the 2nd string. All right, now we're going to a D chord. This D chord I tend to bar. A lot of people will bar this chord. You can play it with fingers. I tend to bar this. Most people who bar this use their ring finger, but mine doesn't collapse the correct way to make that happen. So I tend to use my 4th finger, so you'll see me using my little 4th finger at the 7th fret of the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings, and you'll probably think that's even more difficult than the 3rd, so practice and see which works out best for you. Then the next chord, you stay at the same fret with your 1st finger, although you move strings, and you play this diminished form we learned earlier as a C diminished, but now our fingers are between the 5th and 7th frets, and that's our D sharp diminished. That's that inside string chord. Let's go over those one more time. We start out with the A, then A9, then D at the 5th and 7th fret, and then D sharp diminished. All right, let's move on to the next 4 chords, and we can see how we're moving on. This is an interesting set of chords here. You'll notice that we come up, and I'm playing a 3-note chord, an A with a C sharp in the bass. My 1st finger is at the 7th fret of the 4th string. My ring finger is at the 9th fret of the 6th string, and my little finger here is at the 9th fret of the 3rd string. And everything else is muted. It's going to take a while to get used to this. Notice that that 5th string is muted by the side of my 3rd finger. Now, so far in your life, probably in guitar playing, you've been trying to get every note to sound perfectly clear. and here I am telling you to mute strings. And then those two notes, although they happen to fit in this chord, they won't always, so we want to mute them out too. So we're really just using 3 notes. And this is similar to some of the movement that Freddie Green, the great rhythm guitar player with the Count Basie Band years ago, used to do. Okay, once you get used to that, then the next move is really pretty. This is the C diminished. Notice how you get down. Okay, that's another diminished form. This time, the name of our chord is on the lowest string, and that's the 3rd diminished chord we've shown you so far. We have a bar with our first finger across the 7th fret, across 3 strings, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Then we get in with our ring finger at the 8th fret of the 3rd string, and then bring our our middle finger all the way over to the 8th fret of the 6th string. And again, we're muting out the 5th string and muting out the 1st string as well. Okay, the next chord, our B minor 7th. There's several ways to play this. I'll show you the way I prefer to play it. I bar with my ring finger across the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and then with my 2nd finger, I move over the middle finger. I move over, stretch all the way over to the 7th fret of the 6th string. That means the 5th string again is muted out. Okay, and then the final chord, finally one that might be recognizable to you. It's an E7 chord. Looks just like a C7 back at the 1st fret, but it's between the 5th and 7th frets. Okay, let's go over that one more time, because that's a difficult passage. It'll be a new one for you, but the sounds are really beautiful. There we go. A with the C sharp bass, C diminished, B minor 7th, and then E7. Okay, once you digest that, let's move on to the next 4 and look at those carefully. And this time we're moving on up the neck, but with some familiar shapes. We start out with our A bar chord. Our first step, and then our next step, this is the shape we just learned a minute ago between the 7th and 9th frets, and it's an A with a C sharp bass. Now we're going to play the same chord, the D, but this time it's at the 10th fret, and so it's the bar that looks just like the A. Okay, then D sharp diminished, and this time we're at the 10th and 11th fret. This is the same diminished form that we just learned, but now we are up at the 10th and 11th frets playing it. And we can get the 2nd string in too. So let me go back and play those 4 again. The A bar, the A with a C sharp bass, just 3 notes, D, D sharp diminished. And now we're ready for our last 4 chords. We'll move in through to our very last section of this, and you'll see that we're going to move back down. We have this is the A with the C sharp bass again, the C diminished moving down, and now we're going to an E7 chord, but we're using the 5th in the bass, the B note, so instead of the E7 we played a minute ago, we're playing with our 3rd finger over on the 6th string, and then back to A. So let me go through that last section one more time. We start up here with our A with the C sharp in the bass, then the C diminished, then the E7 with the B in the bass, and finally A. This is going to take a lot of study on your part, so work with it, and then we'll move ahead. I want to talk a little bit about swing rhythm so that you can get used to playing this, and then there's a little exercise to it, and it'll take you a little while to get used to, but I think pretty soon you'll get that. There's a syncopated feel to the swing rhythm, and I think of it as sort of a long, short, long, short, long, short, that used to fit so well with the dance music of the 20s and 30s and even up into the 40s. And so when we play Western swing music and Texas fiddle backup styles, it seems like we continue to play that same syncopated gait that the singers and the soloists like so much. So let's look at this real carefully. I'm just using now a bar chord here, just our standard A chord. And what I'm going to do is play this rhythm that goes like this. Now you'll notice what I'm doing is a strum through with my hand held tightly on the chord. My left hand is holding the chord down tightly. And I've strummed it through. That's my first beat. My second beat is almost, but not quite, a strum across the strings quickly with no pressure down. So if you wanted to start practicing this, you could start it this way. Strum through and then strum it once without squeezing down the strings. Now that's not precisely what I do, but this would be a beginning thing to try. Let's try that for a few times. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You notice we have this squeezing and releasing kind of thing where my hand is constantly doing this together, back, okay? And you can almost hear me playing it. Now, to what I actually do, once you get that idea, I actually strum through once, holding the strings down, and the second time that I strum quickly, I hit the strings, but I quickly release. So there's a little note there the second time, so it sounds more like this. Now that's a real subtle difference. Let's listen to the first section, the first type I showed you. And this. So I like to have that note on the second one. You notice we're playing all down strokes over here. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then over on my left hand, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And put it all together and it'll sound like this. Now, going to our bass strum, to our bass and then a strum, I'm letting the bass ring a little bit, and then I'm still chopping off the chord, letting it off, and again the control for that is over here in the left hand. It'll take you a little while to get used to that, but I believe this will help you get that authentic swing sound. Well, there you have a standard waltz, a Texas type waltz, and you notice that we moved all these chords. Now we would need to learn these chords. This would also work in a lot of jazz tunes. These are chord substitutions. The basic chords to a waltz like this would just be G, C, and D probably, or in this case just G and D. You'd have da 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 da. See, it's just a 2-chord song, and yet we've put all these chords together. So let's look and see what they are. Now we have a bass note and 2 strums for each one. So we have 3 beats. We start out at the 3rd fret with our bar G chord. That's at the 3rd fret. And that's the actual bar, or you could get your thumb in there if you preferred. Okay. Now let's look at this second form, which is a G major 7th. Now, I've moved my first finger over to the G note on the low 6th string. I'm muting out the 5th string, and I have the next 3 strings. It looks kind of like, in fact, it's very much like a B minor if we had our first finger back here, but we have the G bass note. And no first string, so it's just these 4 notes. First string's muted out, and the 5th string's muted out. Okay, work on that form and memorize it. The next form, we're going to move our second finger over to the G note, and we'll play the G 6th chord. Again, we're muting out the 5th string, and it sounds like this. 5th string's out, first string's out still. And then the 4th chord is just like the second. We move back to the G major 7. I want to show you what we're doing here, because if you'll listen, all we're doing is changing this note. We're changing notes on the 4th string and putting a chord with it, so it sounds like this. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that whole phrase substitutes for a G chord. All those chords are technically G chords, but they just are slightly different and adds a little harmonic interest. All right, let's move to the next 4 chords that we have here and look at where we're going now. Now, since we're moving towards a D7 chord, the move is slightly different. We start out with the G again, but then we're going to a G sharp diminished, and we've played this diminished before, G sharp diminished, and you'll notice that on the low 6th string we have a G sharp note. So we would play the bass note and then 2 strums on the chord. You'll also notice I'm letting these chords ring rather than chopping them off. So the first 2 chords again would go together like this. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. Then our 3rd chord of this series is the A minor 7th, which again we will bar with our ring finger at the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings, mute the 5th string, and play with our middle finger, our 2nd finger, at the 5th fret, and then to a D7 at the same fret. So one time through those chords again, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. With the 3rd group of 4 chords, we will see a similarity. We're going to play the same 2 chords twice in a row. So we play our A minor, D7, then again A minor and D7. So let's look at that one more time. You'll see A minor, D7. Now all this is taking the place of a D7 chord. To the final 4 frames of this one, you'll see that we go to the A minor again, and then instead of a D7, which we could do, we're playing a D augmented, which is slightly different. And that augmented note really tugs us back to the G. Hear this. Time. A minor 7, D augmented, and then our G, and then if we're going back to the progression, then we play our D7 again. And if we were playing the second time through, we would stay on the G chord and end there. Let me show you one more thing about the fingering here. On the D augmented, I'm playing the bar with the first finger at the 2nd and 3rd fret, and then the 4th fret, the 4th string is my 2nd finger, my 3rd finger goes to the 5th fret, and work on that. It looks like a small F chord moved over a string, I think. Okay, work with that, and because our very next song is going to take these same chords in a 4-beat song. Well, there we have a song sort of like The Kind of Love I Can't Forget, Dear, which is an old Bob Wills favorite. And you notice we're using these same chords. You also notice here when we get into the chord diagrams, and I guess we might as well go to them. Yeah, there they are. That I haven't written them out for you, and that's because this is your pop test. You should have learned those chords this last song, and you need to be ready right now to play them. And so if you don't know them, look back and learn them from the waltz, and that way you'll be ready. We start out with our G chord. The only difference now is that we have a 4-beat song rather than a 3-beat song. So we go back to our swing type rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's going to be, now that would be a whole measure, 4 beats. However, we are using 2 chords per measure, so we have G for only a bass note and a strum, and then we're going to change to G major 7th and hit bass strum, then the G6, oops, and then back to G major 7th. Again, we're moving this, is the sound that we're getting, so we get G strum, G major 7th strum, G6 strum, G major 7th. Notice, and that is all the substitution for G, and we've moved through 4 chords in 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, moving on to the next section of 4 chords, we'll see that this time we're playing the G, G major 7, G6, and then G sharp diminished. The G sharp diminished, of course, is moving us towards the A minor that's coming up, and it sounds like this. Let's do that one more time. On the first of those 2 slash marks will be the bass note. The second slash mark is the strum. Then change chords quickly, play your next bass note, and that's your G major 7th. Then move for your G6th, bass note and strum, and then back to, this time, a G sharp diminished, bass note. And let me say that while you are moving these chords quickly, the thing you should target is where is your bass note. So here you have a G strum. What's the first thing I want to do on this next chord? I want to quickly keep my bass note down there and put my other fingers down. I have time to hit the bass note, strum, hit the bass note while I'm still moving my fingers, and then strum. That gives me a little more time. Then I move my second finger for the G6 and hit the bass note. I don't even have my fingers down yet, but I'm going to get them down, and then I'll strum that. Then again, first finger comes back for that G note, and then lay them down quickly. Oops, sorry. That time we're going to G diminished, so in that case I was on the G6. Then I would take my second finger, slide it up quickly so I can hit it, and then place the fingers for the rest of the chord. So you don't have to have the whole chord in place before you hit your next bass note. And that's the way you can move through quickly and move. Okay, let's move on to the third section of chords here. And we'll be moving to an A minor chord, and this time for 4 beats. So we'll have bass strum, and then to the D, D. We have our low sixth string bass note, 3, 4, and switch over to a D7, bass, drum, bass, drum. And now we're coming up to a figure called a turnaround. We have the root of the chord, a G bass. So we play the G bass, then strum, and then a G sharp diminished, strum. And let's look at those last two chords that we've got coming up. We'll have an A minor, and then a D7. So we have the G, G sharp diminished, A minor, 7, and D. And this is called a turnaround, and it sends us back to the head of the progression. So we would play through one more time. The second time we get through, we would just end up without the turnaround. Instead of the G, G sharp, A minor 7, and D7, we would just end with a G and perhaps a D7 to get us back into it. And this would take you through the 4-beat version of this same progression, in this case, The Kind of Love. I'd like to show you some of the kinds of bass lines that you can use in this music, just like on Kind of Love. And before we were using the low 6th string, but right now I want to play a shorter form of my F chord, or my G chord, just covering 4 strings, and use this as my first bass note. And I want to play a line that goes like this. Notes, but I'm going to have chords with all those. Right, the first thing I'm going to do is walk up. And the way I do that is to start with my little finger at the 5th fret of the 5th string, then my first finger at the 2nd fret of the 4th, then my 3rd finger at the 4th fret of the 4th, and then I just slide up one more fret with my 4th finger to get the G note, and then I'm ready to play that. So that beginning sounds like this. Okay, that's my first note. My second note is going to be 1 fret down from that. So all I do is just lower it 1 fret, keep the top part of the chord the same. I'm changing my fingerings all the time to get the notes that I want. So now I have my second finger at the 4th fret of the 4th string, my ring finger at the 3rd fret of the 3rd string, and then my first finger is still barring over the 2nd and 1st string. And then there, to get this note, I have actually dropped the 1st string, and now I just have a D note with my 2nd finger. My ring finger is playing the 3rd fret, or the 4th fret of the 3rd string, and my first finger is playing the 2nd fret of the 4th string. Let's try that much. Now I can do the same walk up. And here I am taking my first finger, I'm on the G6th. Now I raise one finger, I raise this finger up to the 3rd fret, so now I have the 3rd, 4th, and 3rd frets on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string. And that gives me the diminished. The full chord was this, but I'm just using the top part. So it goes like this. G, G major 7, G6, walk up, G, G major 7, G6, G sharp, diminished. Now, this next section I really like a lot. Come up to the 5th and 7th frets and use your first finger to bar across the 5th fret, and use your ring finger to hit the 7th fret. There's your A minor chord, and we're going to do this. Okay, let's look at that carefully. My ring finger's at the 7th fret, then I play the 6th fret, the 5th fret, and the 4th fret, and when I get to the 4th fret, I bar with my ring finger across the same 5th fret And now I have a D9 chord. So I've gone from A minor to D7, although it's a D9 chord. And again, it's like this. And then we'd be ready for our G. All right, let me play this whole section one more time for you. 3, 4, 1, 2. That you can begin to add some bass lines to your Western swing guitar playing. There you have a tune of Big Balls in Cowtown, the Hoyle Nix great hit. And of course, Hoyle Nix is a great West Texan from the Big Spring area. And this is the portion of the tape where I have decided to share with you some playing that's very similar to Eldon Shamblin, the great guitar player that played with the Bob Wills Band for so many years, and then with the Texas Playboys after Bob Wills passed away and the Playboys kept going. Eldon was playing with them so much, and Eldon is still around playing at various performances of the Playboys and Western Swing reunions. And he does such a great thing with such a song that's very simple in very many ways. Big Balls in Cowtown could be a 3-chord song, but you can see what Eldon has done with it. So let's go to this split screen so we can see all these chords. We're going to start out with a chord that's high up the neck, and it's a new form, I think, for us. It is a G chord, and but it's in the inside strings. Looks like a little C chord to me. You're going to play this bass note, and then G major 7th, so you'll move down, and then the 7th. So we've gone to G, G major 7th, G7, and then an unusual G 9th, which goes up the neck. It's a real pretty chord. I use my little finger at the 12th fret. And it's a very close voicing and very pretty. The first finger comes up to the 9th fret, and the second finger to the 10th fret. So let's look at those three again. We start out, okay, we start out with the G chord. Lower our bass note by 1 fret, keep the rest the same. Lower that note one more time, keep the rest the same. But we have to change our fingers, of course. Then the G 9th. All right, moving on to the next 4 diagrams. You'll see that we're going to move up here to a C chord with a E in the bass. We should recognize this shape from earlier on. We have our ring finger at the 12th fret, our first finger at the 10th fret. We're muting out the 5th string, and our little finger at the 12th fret again. And then back for a C sharp diminished. Oops, sorry. And you have to watch your frets or you'll do that. That's at the 9th fret, and that's the C sharp diminished. And then up a fret. And now we're back to a G with a D bass, and we have our second finger at the 10th fret, first finger at the 9th, and little finger at the 12th. Then we take that whole shape and change it just a little bit to get down to this chord that I can't describe technically, so I'll just say it's a passing chord. We've been here, and we have now at the 8th fret, our second finger, at the 7th fret, our first finger and our little finger is at the 9th fret of the 3rd string. Okay, moving on to the next 4 chords, you will see what this chord was for. We move down to the 5th fret with that original shape, which is the G with the B in the bass. And now I've changed the diagrams, but all I've done here, you're at the 5th fret. Now you see we're back using a nut position diagram. And that's a different D7. I'm not playing the whole D7 like this, but I'm playing the 5th in the bass, leaving out the 5th string, but I'm fingering it just as if it were a regular D7. And then G, even though I'm just playing certain notes of it, I'm not playing the 5th string. You could. Then a D sharp 7, which is just like the D7 we did a minute ago, but up a fret. Let's look at that section again. G sharp 7, and then going on to the last 4 chords, you see that we slide down then to a D7 with a 5th in the bass. Take those last 3. You're starting out with your D7, but you're moving your ring finger over to the 5th fret and hitting, and then moving over to the 5th fret of the normal position on the 5th string, D7, and then a G. That gives you this sound in your bass line. Okay, work with that very carefully. This is the most difficult part of the tape. It's going to take a little while to digest it all. I hope you can incorporate some of this into your music. I certainly enjoy playing the styles of music that have this kind of chord movement in it, and I hope that you can find some people to play with and learn how to do this. Let me recommend that you go to your record store or used record rack or wherever you can and see if you can find some Bob Wills records, some maybe Asleep at the Wheel records, or some of the Texas Playboys later records too that Eldon Shamblin is playing on, or some of the Texas fiddle players, if you can find any of the Benny Thomason records that are out, or Texas Shorty, or any of those good players. Mark O'Connor, some of his records have this type of backup on them, especially the fiddle tune style, and that'll help you get an ear for what you're listening for, and go out and hear some music if you can, and you'll be able to find these people and get to playing with them and learn this kind of thing. It takes a lot of practice to learn to get the sound in your ears. I've spent a lot of time looking in jazz books. If you're interested in picking up some of the jazz books, a lot of this information is there. It's played slightly different in the jazz groups than it is in either swing or western swing or the Texas fiddle style backup. But I think you can take a little bit from those places and be able to learn and expand your knowledge. And then basically you just have to get out there and experiment, play it around the people. If the fiddlers don't like it, believe you me, they will tell you if they don't like what you're doing, and you can change it. And a lot of them will take the guitar out of your hand and show you, and so you might even get a lesson out of it that way. Well, I have really enjoyed it. I'm going to play to go out an arrangement that Eldon Shamblin did for chords for The Great Faded Love, and I teach this on another tape in the Texas Music and Video series called Nashville Guitar. It's the last selection on that tape. So if you're interested in some more of this type playing and also some Nashville country electric guitar, you might check out Nashville Guitar. Thanks again for tuning in.